Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Greybeards podcast. With me is Bob Sands, as always, and Ken Campbell. Bob, Hall of Fame investigative journalist, Ken Campbell, decorated Navy Special Operations, military intelligence, and executive at a host of companies that deal and dabble in national security. So how you guys been?
Busy, busy, busy. Wow.
Yeah, well,
And
I'm
Ken's on a
deeply,
boat right now.
and Ken's on a boat.
I'll tell you, this situation just keeps changing the channel faster than an old man with a clicker or
Yeah,
something like that.
I mean, everything. So this afternoon, for example, talking about things changing. Trump cancels Witkoff and Jared Kushner going to Pakistan. 10 minutes later, he says he has a new offer from Iran. I just saw that, but God knows. I mean, I have no idea if they're coming or going. How about you guys?
No idea. Well, he canceled the trip for Vance and Witkoff and Kushner, and then, like you said, now all of a sudden, supposedly, the Iranians have made some sort of new offer. I don't know if we have any confirmation on that happening, but it's so confusing. You never know from one minute to the next what's going to happen. So
The
who
funny
knows?
thing is, I mean, Trump keeps saying, I've got this offer, and the Iranians have sent this great thing, and the Iranians always say, we didn't send anything.
We didn't send you a
So
thing.
there's got to
Well,
be
but
something floating around there, but
but Mike, this is his shtick. This is what he does. He gets out there, makes these grandiose claims, and of course, given the fact that he's the president of the United States, the greatest country in the world, that has an immediate impact on so many different things. In particular, the global economy and the markets.
I mean, the whole world is a slave to this right now. Everybody
Yeah,
on earth is being
everybody.
affected by this, which is something you don't witness that often here on planet Earth. One person holding the world, or two parties, the Iranians and the Americans right now on this. But Trump wants to be in the driver's seat on this, so we'll see what happens. If they're able to have talks and negotiate, I'm not optimistic, but we'll see. I think both sides think they have time on their side now. That everything's settled down and they can continue this back and forth in Pakistan and directly negotiating, indirectly negotiating. But in the meantime, we're uh, still carrying out the blockade, boarding some ships, Iranian vessels in other parts of the world, and the Iranians continue to harass in Hormuz. Ken, what's the situation you've seen most recently? Is it relatively quiet over there right now?
Well, I think, in the last 48 hours, 72 hours, we've seen both the United States and Iran continue uh, their attacks on ships, if you will. We've got Iran reportedly boarding a tanker. And of course, I think everybody saw the news reports and the video of one of our Spruance class destroyers putting, 5-inch gun rounds into a vessel that's supposedly carrying, items, cargo, dual use items from China. So that sort of action I anticipate will continue, but for the most part, it's gone to a stalemate.
A standoff.
Well, and again today I went to fill up and it was $60. Which here in Oklahoma,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be whinging because if you're in California or somewhere else, you're paying a lot more to fill up. But what those operations, Ken, I was thinking, I'm going to go into divots. Folks, those of you who don't know what divots is, it's called defense. It stands for, it's DVIDS, and it stands for Defense Video and Information Distribution System. And that is a video that military videographers and still photographers and combat camera people shoot. And since we don't have any independent media embedded in this, that is the only way to get video out. And I saw, pretty spectacular video of I assume Marines dropping in, or I think they were Marines dropping onto a tanker somewhere on Earth that I think was Iranian flag. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I think that was it was in the Indian Ocean or something where they
That's
stopped
Yeah.
it.
that's correct. That's correct, Bobby.
Yeah. Yeah, and they jumped in on it and took it over. And it was an Iranian, one of the supposed shadow tanker fleet that the Iranians used to smuggle oil.
Well, what we'll do is next podcast, I'll see if I can get together some of that video,
Be
and
good.
we'll pop the popcorn and just kind of watch and see what combat cameras been doing, and Ken can tell us what we're seeing.
Yes. Well, I
That
did find it.
system's always been in place, the divot system, and that is
Yeah.
frankly the only way you're seeing anything of what's going on right now in this war. The Iranians have their own propaganda video coming out, and again, there Donald Trump claimed that the Iranian Navy was destroyed, but those fast boats that they have continue to wreak havoc.
Yeah.
They're in the straits, so things things are remaining static, and in this instance, static is not good because it feels to me every day that we remain like this, the economy goes closer and closer towards recession, and maybe something more.
Well,
Well, the consumer. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ken.
yeah, I was going to say, Mike, I think it was the last podcast we were talking about, Iran and its resiliency, its ability to deal with these pressures that are impacting their economy. Certainly, with what's going on now, they're losing a lot of revenue daily. I think only 8 ships on average have been able to get through, which is maybe 3 ships. But usually there's 100 going through, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars daily, for their for their coffers. But you made an interesting comment about how, despite the sanctions and these economic pressures that are now, certain extent there, that somehow they just keep pushing forward and surviving. You know, I don't know if you want to address any of that, but you would think that the squeeze we're putting on them economically would certainly pressurize them to want to sit down and work something out here.
Yeah, but it's interesting. War economies, people that have lived under sanctions for a long period of time, like the Iranians, the Russians, they become very resilient. They become very good at finding other ways to make money because they're human beings and they got to survive. And you think you have them under your thumb, if you're the more powerful entity in a conflict, but they always find a way. The underground economy in these war-torn countries or countries facing sanctions is really, really resilient. You just, I mean, certainly the blockade, I would imagine, is hurting them pretty severely, but they found a way since the revolution in 79 to keep going. And I don't see them flying apart right now. And, uh, new leadership that might be more friendly to and that would want to talk about peace coming in. I just, that's what I everywhere, that's 100% I can say. Everywhere I've been where there's been a war and you go in there and you go, God, how do people survive? And then suddenly, hell, they got DVDs of movies, black market, for example, that aren't even shown here yet. I mean, I remember in Afghanistan, I was finding DVDs of James Bond movie. I remember that I knew was coming out soon. That was already on the shelves at the Haji stores, as we called them in Afghanistan, outside the bases. So, I mean, people are going to find a way. And then
Yeah.
the other thing too is, I think that there's going to be a whole new underground economy because oil is so expensive. Probably you're going to see Somali pirates, back at it again big time because there's a lot of money to be made there. Each one of those tankers what's carrying 40 to 50 million dollars worth of oil at current prices. Some depends how big it is, but somewhere in that neighborhood. And if you're a Somali pirate operating and you can get one of those tankers, you're going to feed your clan for quite a few years. So anyway, I just see underground economy evading everything that's going to be developing and criminal enterprises increasing because the economies around the world are stressed. And when economies are stressed or there's a shortage of something, organized crime always steps in. So that's what I see where we're at. And I don't see this changing much at all. Could be the status quo for a while. Think about this. This could be the status quo. Occasional firing on ships in Hormuz, the U.S. boarding ships, a low intensity kind of warfare, underground economies forming, criminal elements taking advantage of it, other countries in the world looking to find ways to take advantage of this stress in the global economic system. I think this is where we might be at for a while, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah,
Well, the
well,
Defense Department,
go ahead, Bobby.
go ahead.
No,
The
no, no.
Defense Department had to come out. The Defense Department had to come out and admit what Ken's been talking about all along, that even removing the mines that are at present in the Strait of Hormuz will take at least 6 months. Well, we were talking about that weeks ago, that it wasn't going to be a quick process. So no matter what happens, oil is not going to freely move through the Strait of Hormuz for some time to come, because it's going to take a bunch to get them safe. The insurers aren't going to let them move it. The people who control all that stuff aren't going to want to. The ship captains aren't going to want to go until they know it's safe, and that may be 6 months from now. So I think you're right, Mike. I think all of this is going to hang on. Meanwhile, consumer confidence is at its lowest point in recorded history, goes back to 1956. It's even lower than that. We're paying on average 40% more for gasoline every time we fill up. That explains your $60 tab. Mine's $110 for that pickup truck.
Oh
And
my
people are
God.
going to pawn shops increasingly to get loans.
Oh, wow.
They're pawning
Really?
stuff. Meanwhile, the largest oil traders in the world made over $2 billion in the first 3 months of this year. And that's just the traders. That's the guys in the middlemen. They made over $2 billion. So somebody's making a lot of money out of this, and a lot of us are paying for it.
Yeah, it's incredible, Bobby, because I was reading one news report that talked about the fact that, the United States is, for the most part, independent of having to import oil.
Yes.
But yet it doesn't matter because the oil prices that then trickle down into diesel and jet fuel and gasoline and whatnot uh, aren't controlled price wise by that fact. And so those prices are still dictated by all of this external trade, and it's kind of crazy the way it all works.
Yeah, Brent oil closed above 100. WTI is hanging around 92 to 93. Meanwhile, Lufthansa has canceled 20,000 flights because they're running out of jet fuel. United Airlines is hiking prices for people up 20% because of the cost of fuel. So, I mean, we're okay. We're going to make it just fine because we got our own oil, but we're going to be impacted because it's a worldwide commodity and that's how it's priced. So we might be oil independent. And it was interesting too, if you remember, Trump said that they had like hundreds of big super tankers steaming towards our ports to fill up. Has anybody seen any truth to that?
No, I haven't seen anything about that. There is a guy, and my wife follows him, and I listen from time to time. His name is Mr. Global. That's his podcast, and he's really really good on this
Yeah.
subject. He knows this, and one of the things he was saying, I don't think he had seen any of those ships or seen any indication of that. But the whole thing that concept that we could produce, as one of the world's largest, if not largest oil, one of the largest oil producers in the world, the United States, pardon me, we can only produce at the same rate we're producing now because there aren't any free oil rigs out there. There are no oil rigs just sitting around. We live, Bobby and I live in Oklahoma City, folks, where they used to make a lot of those oil rigs. I mean, driving down I-35 through South Oklahoma City, you used to see them constructing the oil rigs all the time. They haven't constructed an oil rig down there in probably, I don't know, 6-7 years, probably, Bobby. I haven't seen a rig down there.
Yeah, and
Maybe I'm wrong.
The parts, the pipe yards and all those are lots of them don't have anything in them, and they're not doing much. But as far as the tankers are concerned, a website called Factually has confirmed that market data and industry commentary show an unusually large flow of tankers and higher U.S. export bookings for April and May. So there are some coming, but as far as hundreds, there is absolutely nothing to back that up at the moment.
Yeah, but even so, that's not going to bring the price down because that oil is going to be traded at these elevated prices due to the war. It doesn't benefit the average citizen at all.
At all.
I mean,
in fact, some of our oil going to go to other people now.
Someone described it that it's not like oil's in a bunch of different sinks and all the sinks have a different price. It's in one big bathtub. Think of everything going into one big bathtub, and it's all costing, the price is set basically globally. This is a global commodity. So, some parts of Earth are hurting more than other parts.
I found this audio.
Yeah, you found what, Bobby?
I found this video clip I think kind of addresses what some of this might be about, and it's about oil. This is President Trump when he was just Mr. Trump, 1987, in an interview with Barbara Walters.
Okay.
And here we go.
Because I'm running for the presidency. I'm here because I'm personally tired of seeing this great country of ours being ripped off.
But as far as Trump is concerned, our allies are only part of the problem. The real culprit is Iran.
Why couldn't we go in and take over some of their oil, which is along the sea?
How would you do that? Would you send in the Marines? Would you take a chance in the war?
Let them have Iran. You take their oil. That's what
How?
How?
I mean, do we want a war? What do you mean we take their oil?
You go in. You're
How
gonna have
do
a
we
war,
go
Barbara.
in?
You're going to have a war by being weak.
Okay, how do we go in? What do we do?
Excuse me. Yeah. You're going to have a war, and it's going to start in the Middle East.
What if the Soviet Union said, you do this to Iran, we're going to come in?
I don't believe they'd do it. The next time Iran attacks this country, go in and grab one of their big oil installations, and I mean grab it and keep it, and get back your losses, because this country has lost plenty because of Iran.
Okay, there you have it.
Well, and you say that
was
from
1987. 1987.
Wow.
Do you sense a predisposition to do this?
Yes, absolutely. It's like this has been on this guy's mind for a decade or so now. And
let's just waltz in there and take it.
Yeah. Yeah, Barbara kept pushing him. How you going to do it? How are you going to do it? You're going to use the Marines? He never answered that question.
My
Hey, the thing watching that is, it just hit me. I really miss Barbara Walters.
I do too. She was tough. I loved it.
Yeah, we don't have people to interview like that anymore. My God.
Yeah,
God, she was great.
Oh, we all act so sweet and loving now, but that's not how you and I grew up in this business.
Yeah, no, not at all. So, I mean, he's had this on his mind for a long, long time.
Yeah, what he didn't have on his mind, Mike, was how capable Iran and its military are going into this thing. I mean, they've been playing a war to a degree of attrition. Flooding the air with ballistic missiles and drones and depleting all those very sophisticated interceptors we have, to the point where we are down 75% of these stockpiles and having to pull them from different global theaters to include potentially Indo-PACOM, where those systems are really there to offset certainly any threats from North Korea or China. It blows my mind looking back at 7 weeks, I guess, by now, Beastworks Information Group reporting on the development of this war and, you know, what has happened thus far and where it seems to be going. Because the one thing that comes through loud and clear, and we're probably going to put a report out on this, is how this administration and the command authority, the National Command Authority, have miscalculated big time. You know, again, I think they thought this was going to be like going into Venezuela and just picking up Maduro by,
Yeah.
you know, his
Well,
by his neck and hauling him off.
so explain to the layman what you mean by National Command Authority.
Well, we're talking the president, we're talking the Secretary of Defense, we're talking the Joint Chiefs, we're talking the National Security Council advisors advising to them. But really, you know, we're looking, you know, it's the president and the Department of Defense leadership.
See, what I would love to know is how on board the Joint Chiefs were for
Yeah.
this whole thing. Because they've been wargaming this for decades. They've had plan after plan after plan on the shelf that they could dust off and revise those plans. You know that, Ken. And and in those war games, it's been laid out before that this would happen. At least I've seen reporting on that and have been told that by a couple of folks before, because over the years we've talked about Iran and what would happen if there was a war there, and it was always a given that Straits of Hormuz would be closed down, and all of a sudden, shock, we strike
Well,
Iran and the Straits of Hormuz is shut down.
you know, this is what my thinking on this. Okay, so you've got the president, you got Marco Rubio, that's multiple hatted. He's State Department. He's also the National Security Advisor.
Yeah.
You have Sec War Pete Hegseth. You have the Joint Chiefs. Okay, with General Kane as certainly the chairman. And then you have the Combatant Command, the leadership, the U.S. Central Command, commanding general, and then the commanders of the various component commands. Naval Forces Central Command, Marine Corps Central Command, ARCENT, Army Central Command. And the only thing I can think of is either everybody acquiesced or everybody just sort of tippy-toed around the question and just kind of went, yeah, because they don't want to lose their jobs,
Yeah.
and maybe that's hyperbole. I don't know, but it just seems it's hard for me to believe that the military leadership structure below the secretary, and I'm talking the senior leaders in uniform, weren't aware or cognizant of the fact that this was not going to be a walk in the park.
It wasn't going to be 4 or 5 weeks and we're done.
Yeah. And certainly a huge miscalculation with regard to the asymmetric capabilities of Iran, again, going back to the mines, but not discounting the drones. And now what we've got is a situation where, in order to open up talks, Iran has insisted that the blockade be lifted, number one. That's like the major stuck right now. And then when you get past that, the next major stuck is going to be around their nuclear enrichment program and what the administration is going to demand and what Iran is willing to do and to counter as options. But at present, the first stuck is this issue of the blockade against Iran, because as you pointed out earlier in our podcast, there's a lot of pain being caused to the economy because Iran can't get its oil through. So.
Well, hey, look, whether the Joint Chiefs acquiesced or decided to go along to get along or whatever, we've known through war games for decades that this was going to happen this way. And I don't see how one operation in Venezuela would have got everyone really excited and say that's wearing a uniform there in the National Command Authority, got them all excited and say, yeah, no, we can do that. Those guys are smarter than that.
Well, I could see, Hegseth and the president thinking that, because they were able to see that very well executed operation, bring home the bacon, if you will, that
Yeah.
they could do the same thing here. I mean, when you listen to Trump talk on Truth Social and certainly in, news interviews such as what, Bobby brought up, Barbara Walters, he talks about these people like they're freaking idiots.
Yeah.
Like they're just some, backwards thinking, people. And that's not the case, and it never has been. I mean, where do you think, language and mathematics and art and other things came from? I mean, we're talking some very, very, very intelligent and bright, capable minds, albeit the fact that, they're run by a, theocratic governance. Hell, I don't know.
Bobby, you have some other things you wanted to show, or you want to wait for
Well,
another podcast?
there is there's so much here that it's just crazy to think about, and I don't want to pollute everything. This is a good line of discussion.
Michael edited it down to something good.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'll attempt.
Yeah. There is one thing I want to show you guys, and I think this is kind of critical. If it's okay, I can share this. There's no audio. This is just a graphic, and here it is. This is the latest polling on the president and the economy. Percent of U.S. adults who approve or disapprove of how President Donald Trump is handling the economy. Disapproval, 70%. Approval, 30%. 70% don't like what's happening. I think that's a very telling thing, and I'm sure the president has seen this.
So if we break that down by party, we're probably looking at 50% plus Democrat independent, and the rest would be Republican MAGA. Is that a fair
30%?
breakdown?
30% think he's doing an okay job, and that's going to be Republican. Yes. There was an interesting poll out of Oklahoma, the bright red state that Oklahoma is. That came out this week. Trump's approval rating is down to 54% from 61% a year ago, and that's in Oklahoma.
Wow.
And that's made up primarily of white males, 50 plus. The other side of that equation is Democrats, blacks, young people, and Mexicans, Latinos. So it's interesting to see what's happening even in Oklahoma. There's shifts starting to happen here. So take that for what it's worth.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's reconvene. Let's see if there are going to be talks, or will the talks remain canceled for now. We'll figure this out. And folks, we'll be back at you. I was going to play my clapping thing here. I'm trying to play with my Riverside system, and it's not working. Next time I'll have the audience applause working, that really the technical people, the hundreds of technical people we have backing us up here that you don't see, obviously. Anyway, I feel sometimes like we're from that commercial on TV. That's not the way it works, But anyway, that's what happens when you're a graybeard, folks.
Greybeard,
tell you
yes,
that's
a Greybeard.
Greybirds, yeah, Greybirds. Hey, folks, have a great day and weekend, and we'll talk some more later. Okay.
Okay. Have a good one, guys.
Okay. Talk to you.